My name is Anthony Aguilar, and many of you know me over the past 8 months in my outspokenness and revelations of the war crimes and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, of which the United States is complicit. Today, on the 20th of February, the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, the Honorable Mike Huckabee, posted a 6-minute clip from his recent interview with Tucker Carlson, specifically addressing me by name. Mind you, this is the same interview of which, when Tucker Carlson left Israel, was detained and questioned as to what his conversation with Ambassador Huckabee detailed. Furthermore, Ambassador Huckabee has demonstrated time and time again that his interests lie with Israel. He lies for Israel, he acts on behalf of Israel, and he puts Israel's interests above America's interests. Ambassador Huckabee has demonstrated that he is Israel first, and this is intolerable. Mike Huckabee should resign. He is unfit for his office, and he has lost the trust, faith, and confidence of the American people. Let's watch that clip, and I will address each of Ambassador Huckabee's lies.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
You platformed a guy, you had him on your show, Tony Aguilar.
Don't platform anyone.
Well, you interviewed.
Not a liberal,
Tony
so I don't
Aguilar.
platform people.
Okay, you interviewed Tony Aguilar, who claimed that IDF soldiers killed a little boy in his presence. That didn't happen.
Okay.
It did not happen.
I don't know.
Let me
I
give you
don't
the
know
story.
if you know whether it happened or not.
Well, I
mean,
can tell you why I know it didn't happen.
Okay.
Because we found that little boy less than a week later.
All right.
I was involved, heavily involved, in helping to extricate him from Gaza. 4 different countries were involved in getting he and his mother to safety, get them out of there. Tony Aguilar is a liar.
Okay.
Tony Aguilar claimed that he saw an IDF soldier shoot the little boy. He was fired from the GHF for cause, and he begged for his job back, and they wouldn't give it back because they didn't want him. And he told them that if they didn't give his job back, that he would burn them down.
Okay.
So he goes out. No, let me finish this because it's important for you to understand.
Right.
So this guy then goes out and makes up this story that he witnessed IDF soldiers shooting a little boy.
I don't know that he made it up. He seemed to believe it to me. It's possible he's wrong. I've been wrong many times.
Well, this is a little bit more than just missing a fact. He claimed to be an eyewitness to the murder of a little boy.
Okay.
A little boy that a week later we found.
And you're sure it's the same little boy?
We're absolutely certain.
How do you know that?
Because we had pictures of him. We had descriptions of him. We know his name. We know his mother.
Okay.
He was extricated out of Gaza. It was a very delicate situation to get him out because if Hamas had found out that he was still alive, they would have killed him in order to validate Aguilar's story.
How do you know that?
So he gets out.
How do you know Hamas would have killed him?
Why wouldn't they? Wouldn't they have wanted to kill him? Because that way they could have said that this story was true.
Look,
that Aguilar.
Ambassador Huckabee claims that the young boy Amir was found days later. That is unequivocally false. Amir was killed on the 28th of May, 2025, outside of Secure Distribution Site 3. He was gunned down and killed by the IDF, along with many other unarmed, starving Palestinians. We have seen this time and time again. The IDF have admitted to shooting unarmed Palestinians outside of these sites. We have witnessed in video and in photography GHF contractors shooting at unarmed civilians, as well as the IDF firing into the crowds, wounding and killing many. In July of 2025, I went on to breaking points. At that time, the GHF claimed that Amir had already been found and was found at distribution site number 4. As you look at the photos, that is not Amir. GHF corrected the record in stating that, in fact, that was not the boy that they claimed to still be alive. There is also no way that Amir could have been at site number 3 on the 28th of May and then at site number 4 on the 2nd of June. Palestinians could not cross the Morag corridor from south to north, and there would have been no way for Amir to traverse, especially on foot, to site number 4. GHF lied. They were caught in their lie. And Western media has covered that up, namely Fox News, namely Ambassador Huckabee. In the claims that Amir was found in late August, to which the GHF revealed this on the 4th of September, not days later, as Ambassador Huckabee claims. The reason Ambassador Huckabee spouts this narrative is because it was fed to him, intentionally to inject into this interview with Tucker Carlson lies that he is telling on behalf of Israel, on behalf of Mossad, on behalf of the CIA, not on behalf of the truth. The truth behind Amir's death is much more concerning and implicates Ambassador Huckabee directly in war crimes. On the 23rd of August, the Middle Eastern Eye reporter Mohammed Salama and a contact that he was working with on revealing the death of Amir were detained and interrogated by GHF contractors at site number 3. 2 days later, on the 25th of August, Mohammed Salama and many others were killed in the double tap strike at Nasser Hospital, of which the GHF, through their use of Palantir and data collection, helped provide targeting information to the IDF to conduct that strike. Mohammed Salama had evidence, video, of the encounter that day that I also witnessed, confirming that Amir was killed. And rather than have the truth be exposed, the GHF, hand in hand with the IDF, killed the reporter. We've seen this time and time again as well. To cover the truth, they kill the reporters. Mohammed Salama was killed on the 25th of August. Then on the 4th of September, GHF proclaimed that they had found Amir. They claimed that the boy's real name is Aboud. Clearly from the pictures you can see, they are not the same child. GHF attempted this tactic prior on the 29th of July. The GHF and Ambassador Huckabee want you to not believe your own eyes. They want you to believe the narrative. Amir was killed by the IDF, orchestrated by the GHF and UG Solutions at Distribution Site 3. And that is a fact. Ambassador Huckabee is complicit in the cover-up and the murder of a young Palestinian boy who only wanted to get food and return home.
Is it true he also made the claim, and he had audio of it, and video too, that U.S. contractors were using live ammunition to disperse crowds? And he had video of that. Do you know did he make up that video?
There were times, here's what happened. Crowds would come toward the sites. They were given verbal warnings, and then they were given additional verbal warnings, and shots were fired either in the air, sometimes in the ground. And if they continued to come and threaten, there were times when there were people who were engaged in firefights. That happened.
Oh, they were armed?
Sometimes they were.
They were. Do you know of specific instances where they were armed?
I can probably get you some specific information about that.
I think I know the answer to that. I don't think there's any evidence at all that they were armed.
But I also know that...
Are you okay with using live ammunition at aid distribution sites for families, women, and children?
Well, very rarely did this happen near
How about at all? Are you okay with that?
No. I'll tell you what I'm not
like
okay
you're
with.
okay
No. I think you are so trying to put words in my mouth.
You said that they were firing back, but then there's no evidence that they were.
On a Sunday afternoon, I can remember when there was widespread reports on BBC, CNN, and the New York Times, and they said that 27 people were killed at a feeding site. We had video extensively over that site. Not one single person, not only were they not shot, nobody was shot at.
The truth of the indiscriminate shooting and targeting of unarmed civilians at the distribution sites fired upon by the IDF and UG Solutions is that this practice happened every day. Tear gas, stun grenades, tasers, riot batons, live ammunition from rifles and machine guns, from the IDF, from the coaxial machine gun of a tank, fired into the crowds, killing many and wounding many unarmed, starving Palestinians. These sites were set up as death traps. You can clearly see that from the video that I took personally on distribution site 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is clear evidence that Ambassador Huckabee yet again is lying about what truly happened. And he expects you, the American people, to not believe your own eyes. Believe what you see. There are war crimes that were committed by UG Solutions personnel and the IDF.
That might be the only option keeping him from focused.
This is not a battlefield, though it might look like one. It's a food distribution point in Gaza. Bullets are kicking up the sand as men wait to get food. It's one of 4 sites run by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a joint Israeli-US scheme they say replaces the UN.
In Ambassador Huckabee's third lie, he claims that I was fired. This is a GHF claim, of which they are lying. I terminated my contract, and I'm providing you a snapshot of that termination, along with the metadata that shows the day of which I printed it and wrote it. I terminated my contract in protest for the brutal tactics being employed in Gaza by the IDF and UG Solutions. UG Solutions personnel, Safe Reach Solutions personnel, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation leadership, all the way up to Mr. John Acri, were all aware and complicit. Ambassador Huckabee continues to lie because he, too, is complicit in war crimes. Criminals lie. Ambassador Huckabee is a liar and a war criminal, and there will be a day of judgment where he will face justice. His lies hold no merit. Truth, you can see it with your own eyes.
He was fired from the GHF for cause, and he begged for his job back, and they wouldn't give it back because they didn't want him. And he told them that if they didn't give his job back, that he would burn them down.
Okay.
So he goes out. No, let me.
Ambassador Huckabee is an Israeli agent. He does not represent the interests of the United States. He lies for Israel. He covers for Israel. He is complicit in war crimes, and he lies to cover up those crimes. I ask you, who would you believe? Mr. Huckabee, who has demonstrated his inability to put Americans first, his unwillingness to tell the truth? Would you believe UG Solutions, run by the Infidels Motorcycle Club, or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that ceased operations and fled in the middle of the night on October 10th? Or would you believe someone that was there, that saw it, that witnessed it? Believe your own eyes. And you see the video. Countless incidents of shooting, killing, the murder, the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. I served this country for 25 years in uniform as a Green Beret. I'm a graduate of West Point. Duty, honor, country. For 25 years in uniform, serving in the elite special forces, I can be trusted. And I was there, and I saw it. Mike Huckabee asks, take my word for it. We cannot trust Ambassador Huckabee, and neither should you.
That was a long clip, but I thought it was very important to show that. It's kind of amazing that some of these older politicians that have been in office a long time think that they can just lie and repeat it enough times and people will believe it. Anthony Aguilar's shown all the documentation that was a lie. And I do hope that Tucker Carlson, as of now, I don't think he's looked into it to correct him publicly. I hope that will happen.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's jump right into it. This first question is actually for Greg and for James, since you guys are both running in some red states. So let's start with Greg. The war overseas always comes back home. So how can you down there in Texas take people's big government fears of a big government totalitarian police state and merge it with your campaign against Israel, the government of Israel, and ICE?
Yeah, first of all, I would just like to say I'd like Tony a lot, support his campaign. But this is a common tactic that they use to just make it about one story. There's tens and tens and tens of thousands, we don't even know, potentially hundreds of thousands of dead children under the rubble in Gaza. So when they try to make it about this one case, it's a psyop and it's a Hezbollah talking point. So, we can just get rid of that and just dismiss Mike Huckabee, who worked so hard to get me out of Israeli detention when I was on the flotilla to Gaza. So absolutely absent. I would like to bring up that the U.S. Embassy, out of 44 different countries, was the last to arrive to the concentration camp out in the Negev desert where we were all put in. So he's kind of a lost cause. He was put there. Mike Huckabee was put there for a reason, and that is to show ironclad support for the state of Israel. And I'm running in Central Texas, in like the dispensational heartland of Christian Zionism. So one thing that I've noticed, though, is that we have a false sense of like how concerned the average voter is about our actual relationship with Israel. Yep. We like, I think all of us are probably, because we're running in various races, are chronically online, and a lot of these accounts, spewing this stuff, are actually, a lot of them are not even in the United States. They're not actually U.S. citizens. They pretend they are. They've got flags and crosses in their bio, but a lot of these people aren't actually Americans. And, outside of like some core like megachurch areas, rural farmers and ranchers who are getting their property bought up by data centers associated with Israeli tech and defense companies are more concerned about that. And I think talking about national issues, like what is affecting people day to day, is a good way to kind of message around like why you should care about the war state, or the war always comes back home. We've kind of been normalized and propagandized to believe like this is just what happens. We were at war for 20 years in the global war on terror, which is not ended, which is actually being fought here through the institution of Department of Homeland Security, which was made in the post 9/11 mania as, kind of this extra legal police force. That's going to be difficult to message in Texas, but I can talk about that later. No, people are concerned about data centers. They're concerned about water. Greg Abbott in Texas just signed a bill to use fracking water in agricultural land. And, the main challenge is to link all of these issues. There's this old quote by Kwame Ture that says, activists mobilize for issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. And that is not just AIPAC or the Zionist lobby or their supporters. It is the billionaire class writ large. And it's a group of people that really don't need to be that wealthy. And this is a bipartisan issue. And one of the biggest things they're going to try to do is bring up the Israel thing, activate their base to create culture wars or identity politics, to distract from the class war, which is absolutely happening because they say it out loud. What was Warren Buffett's infamous quote? There's a class war, all right, and it's my class, the rich class, who's winning, unquote. So I think people are starting to realize that. And people might have lost faith in electoral politics. Texas is really not a blue state or a red state; it's a non-voting state. And we want to use the electoral politics as kind of the dying institution of electoral politics to educate and organize people, even if it's into alternative systems outside of the federal government. Like, get involved in your communities, have community coalitions, not just fighting the data centers, but high transmission power lines, military waste out in Fort Hood. So it's about linking issues and basically just educating people, because we've been propagandized over decades and decades and decades to hate your neighbor, while a small group of rich men plunder your tax dollars and use them to enrich themselves.
And build data centers in your backyard. And I think that's exactly right. Pairing those national issues to the local. And I think you're really good with your campaign video at that data center, pairing the national, which could be the police state, with Israel. You can tie things in, but they know that they're getting a big data center built in their backyard. Their electric bills are going up, and it's not good. James, let me throw it over to you. You're running as a libertarian in Indiana, and let me ask you, how do you pair peoples in a red state who have total fears of big government, totalitarian dystopia? How do you pair that with our current government's actions of support for Israel and all these big government ICE, Gestapo, running around the streets and stuff like that? So how do you pair your campaign and bring it back to the local level and identify with the voters?
Yeah, great question. Thanks first for having me on. I'm a libertarian running in Indiana, which is a red state. This is actually my third federal run, so fourth run for office as well. But with the three federal races, this is in the seventh, which is actually very solid blue. So this will be interesting. But I'm very optimistic because I think the message of I've always been anti-war through every single campaign. And in my second federal race, the congressional for sixth, I was actually the highest third-party candidate in the state of Indiana. When I ran locally, I got 1 out of every 4 votes. And then my first run for U.S. Senate across the state of Indiana, so that included the 7th district, I did pretty well for a third-party candidate as well. But in every single one of those races, I was anti-war. And I laid out, I give the reasons why. Look, civilian death is one of the main reasons why we have to look at the consequences of our actions. And I don't think we have enough candidates that are pro-peace. But what it encourages me is to see that people are willing to listen to that message and not immediately disregard it. They're looking at the consequences of war. And some of it, which when we really look at, if you want to look at local issues that impact the federal, look at all your veterans. And those are veterans that are coming back with PTSD, veterans that are not adapting back to society and are homeless, veterans who aren't getting the health care they want. And one of my platforms, especially with my Senate run, was to take care of our veterans. But when you look at that, we have to be anti-war to stop creating so many of these traumatic situations. War is not always necessary like they tell you. It's often not necessary. And so, yes, we can have a defense, but we really, really have to look at the consequences, and that is civilian death. So I am optimistic that red states are willing to listen to this message. I think some of my campaigns have been evidence of that. I'm excited to take it to the 7th district, which is primarily blue. I think even the Democrats haven't been talking about being anti-war enough. So
I'm very good at that.
we just need candidates across the border that are willing to take a stand and say, look, we don't need to be killing our literally 18-year-olds going to war. Another thing that I think impacts locally that we can talk about on this subject is, why are we recruiting in high school?
I hate that.
These guys are getting their education, trying to finish high school level. Why are we going in there and recruiting at 18? We know brain development is very minimal at that point. I work with behavior therapy. So I see a comment that says Democrats are pro-war party. at this point, both parties are pro-war, so I agree with that. But
That's a great
talk
point,
back,
James.
back to that mental health part. Doing behavior therapy, I realized that we really need to focus on these local stories, and that does impact that war level. And again, I'll maintain that same message of we need to promote peace first, and that needs to be our primary goal through all these situations.
Absolutely. Hey, Sean, what would your message be to a 17-year-old out there in California that's thinking about enlisting?
Can you hear me okay? Is my audio?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Well,
Okay.
it's an economic draft that we have now, right? I mean, it may not be a draft, but it's an economic draft.
In military circles, we call it the poverty draft.
Right. Well, first of all, I just wanted to comment on the interview with Mike Huckabee. So I live in a deep blue district, and I don't think that there are many people that believe what he was saying. I don't think anyone takes his argument seriously. I think Anthony Aguilar is a very credible figure. And what I see people talking about, as far as that Tucker Carlson interview of Huckabee goes, is that admission that the United States and Israel accepts this idea of greater Israel. And I think that's really important for us to understand that it's not just a matter of we need to end the genocide in Gaza. It doesn't end there. The Israel project is going to continue to expand into Syria, Iraq, Egypt, etc. And so we are in a long-term fight. We are in a multi-year fight. And I know Greg and I both are endorsed by Track APAC. We are part of a new crop of politicians who are rejecting the Israel lobby money. And I think that's so important. It seems like our foreign policy has very little to do with U.S. national interests and everything to do with Israeli interests. Okay, maybe that's an oversimplification, but certainly in that region, that's the case. What would I say to a 17-year-old that's thinking of enlisting? I would say I would not do that, my friend. I remember that when I was that age, I considered enlisting. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in I attended public schools. I believed the things that I was taught. I wanted to join the Marines. I thought it was the right thing to do. I understand where people are coming from with that, but I think that I want to make it clear, I believe that we do need to have defense of our country, but I don't believe that's what our military's main objective is. Our military's main objective is global hegemony. So I'd say join the National Guard, although even maybe that's not enough because they'll get deployed too. So
actually, the bulk of combat deployments during the
Guard.
opening days of Iraq were actually reserves and guard.
Yeah, I
units.
remember that. Yeah.
Hey, Greg, what's your message to the youth that's thinking about enlisting?
I don't really think that I could. Well, I enlisted at 18 to go into special operations. I started off as the infantry, and they call it the infantry for a reason. It literally comes from infant.
You're right.
Yeah, because the generals are older, and the kids dying on the front lines are always the youngest and the most impressionable and easiest to indoctrinate. So, I don't think I'd be able to break through years and years of propaganda. We are the most militarized and propagandized society on earth. I've lived in other countries, other militant countries too, like India. Like nothing comes close to the amount of indoctrination, especially military indoctrination, American exceptionalism. To actually get through to someone, you kind of have to start talking about systems, right? So a lot of people will say, "Oh, we're doing all this for Israel." I was like, okay, well, Israel is just an extension of the U.S. empire to destabilize the most strategic region on earth and do our dirty work, right? Like right now, we actually, if you look at the Trump White House, they're actually trying to, they're saying the Iran attack would be a lot easier for us if Israel starts it for us, so we're not directly doing it. Like Israel's always stepped in, to Guatemala after we overthrew the government for literal bananas to take over the CIA's training of death squads who were committing a genocide against indigenous Mayans. This is nothing new. So when I talk to people about this, it's look, you're not going to go there and die for a foreign country. You're not going to die for a country. You're literally going to die for 500 rich dudes. That's it. Like that's what you're going to fight for. It's not Israel. It's not that you're not fighting for a government or a country. You're literally fighting for a handful of old men who have been generationally wealthy for hundreds of years. So,
But
that's my approach.
I see spreading awareness about that, like especially with these ICE protests, these anti-ICE protests. I've had a lot of opportunity to go out and talk to people in my district. And from my perspective, they're kind of like normal Democrats. They're kind of ordinary Democrats, but they're really upset by what looks like a Gestapo force. And a number of them are upset with the incumbent in my district because he's calling for basically reform of ICE in a moment where they want to go much farther than that. They want to abolish ICE. And, I think they know that something's really wrong. And yet they're really scared to abandon the current system. And like they know they don't like this guy, but
did he ever vote to fund ICE? Because that's something that, I mean,
yes, even
very
worse,
surprising to me.
Even worse than that, the guy I'm running against, Jimmy Panetta, he actually voted for a resolution last year that was praising ICE, thanking them for protecting the homeland. And the people in this district know that, and they're furious with him. And I think there are a number of them that are going to vote for someone else, but there's still this fear of breaking away from the status quo. And that's really what we face as the third party candidates. It doesn't matter how good our arguments are. It doesn't matter how good the data is. There's still this fear. They want to cling on to what they know. Now, in my race, I do have an advantage that not everybody else has, which is that we have a top 2 nonpartisan primary system.
Right.
So I'm able to say, okay, vote for me, and in the general, and I'm in a deep blue district, in the general, it'll be establishment Democrat versus independent progressive. Don't vote for me, and it's going to be establishment Democrat versus establishment Republican. And so in that way, I'm able to kind of defuse the spoiler effect. But I know in other states, they don't have that. I think, like when I ran last time, I got the highest vote percentage of any Green running for Congress. And I think in part it was because I was really emphasizing that. I think that I don't know about Indiana. I know in Texas, you're just going to be facing off with a Republican and Democrat in November, I assume. I don't know about Indiana.
And it's an 84-year-old incumbent endorsed by President Trump, and he's missed 800 congressional votes over his career. Seems like a lot. And literally half his money comes from AIPAC and AIPAC affiliates. He doesn't really legislate. He just, his largest donor aside from that is an Israeli defense firm. So,
and what about in Indiana?
Yeah, so Indiana is unique. It's so we have the Libertarian Party is incredibly strong in Indiana. We have a governor who ran with 10% of the vote a couple election cycles ago. But when it comes down to who's on the ballot, it's all about the Secretary of State race, which actually happens this year. So our ballot access is ran through that. So anybody who gets, I believe it's 3% on that race will be on the ballot in November. So that's how our ballot access works for third parties. And we run it as if we're one of the 2 major parties. I think that's what our messaging has to be, because in order to get different results in Washington, we have to vote differently. And that's always been my message. I have to earn your vote. And if you don't like what's happening in Washington, D.C., it's direct credit to the Democrats and Republicans both. Like we were talking about on this specific topic, neither party is anti-war anymore. So we have to get that message out. I think the biggest issue we have, as I've seen in my races, is money. In order to get your name out, you have to do the advertising. You have to do the work. Social media is great, and you can do a lot through that, but on the cheaper side. But really, it doesn't compare to when you're getting the media attention. And one of the issues I had with my Senate run, I had the biggest newspaper cover me. I raised $20,000, which was one of the higher amounts for a third-party candidate in Indiana. I was part of the debate. So there's 3 people on the stage for the debate. But the issue I had was Fox, which is one of the largest watch networks, decided to not include me based on the rules they had set that I had to raise 60,000. So the only requirement I didn't meet was raising 60,000. So I was a third of that, and it was really unfortunate. But that's what we're up against. And I think as third parties, we have to take that we have to kind of play the game the way it's rigged at the moment. So we really have to work on that fundraising part. And that's kind of how it works in Indiana.
Well, last week, Phil Anderson, who ran in 2024, he's a libertarian. He's a regular co-host with us. And he really made an excellent point that this is really what we're doing here is it's across election cycles. It's not like just this time, because you guys know, and I think, hasn't Phil run like 4 or 5 times? And he plans to run again. And Michael, you plan to run again. And I think that's what people need to see is that you keep coming back and showing up. And also with this, what we're doing is it is showing that there are all these issues, like we have on the candidate pledge that are, libertarians and Greens and independents are in agreement about. And if you talk to the public, they're all issues. I researched all of them. They're all issues that the majority support. So it's kind of just makes no sense that we keep electing people don't do any of those things.
Let me
hear you guys.
Absolutely, Kelly. Let me butt in and let me kick a question over here to Greg, and I'll ask all the candidates this. So on this topic of, it's kind of like the movie Moneyball. We can't be playing by the same rules. They have all the money. And so let me kick it to Greg first. What are something would you envision running a revolutionary campaign, doing things differently, and how can you improve normal people's lives to make them want to take that chance? When you think about your campaign, you have a large social media following. What kind of revolutionary campaign do you want to run that's outside the box and that can maybe hopefully improve some people's lives? It's kind of like an open question. Take it however you like.
Oh yeah, we're actually going to use the campaign donations and volunteers to actually help out with community organizing. So across districts. Yeah, as volunteers, we're not going to be like door knocking. Hey, have you heard about that? No, we're showing up at community meetings. Finding them on Facebooks.
Nice.
Basically organizing around data centers and high transmission power lines and literally environmental issues. Not because it's the Green Party. It's because this is so nonpartisan at this point. So yeah, we're not going to be sending in volunteers and like on your doorstep. We're going to be showing up in the community.
Nice.
Well, the environmental issues, and that's on the pledge as well. And when you talk to people, and this is across the board, if it's stuff like in their backyard, it's a lot easier for them to relate to. I think it's hard for people that are trying to make ends meet to worry about the polar ice caps melting, even though that's really important. But when they've got a toxic waste dump in their backyard and neighbors that have cancer because of it becomes a different thing altogether. And I think that's where you can talk to people.
And this district's getting hammered more so. It's one other district in Virginia that's like powering DC, and it's this district 31. It's going to be smack dab in the middle of this AI superhighway that they're building from Dallas down to Austin, down to San Antonio. So everything is like literally like it's going to go through farmland, ranch land, eminent domain is going to happen because it's not just the data centers. They are having to run. I don't know if you've seen these massive high-powered transmission lines that in like China, the massive monolithic things going straight through people's homes from the Permian Basin out in West Texas all the way through these rural communities. And a lot of people a lot of the organizers that are actually involved in the district are the ones who vote because they're older. They moved out of the country to retire, and now they're going to potentially have their homes seized for this because, everything has been designed by the quote unquote billionaire ruling class, parasite class. And the system was designed by them and it's meant to work for them. But however, at a local level, we still have some Republican like institutions that, we're able to, if you organize enough within city councils and like within local government, you can actually shut these things down. So using this campaign to actually get people involved politically, because that's the thing. Like we're sleepwalking our way into like self-annihilation right now. So if like we're playing to win, but if we can actually just get people politically involved and teach people how to be, because we've been taught how to not be politically involved as a country.
Absolutely.
So that's the main goal. That's kind of our unconventional approach.
Actually, our approach, my campaign, definitely has some similarities to Greg's. One is that we are also focusing on these kind of local issues. One that has deeply impacted our district is that we had a big fire of a lithium-ion battery storage facility.
That was
Moss Landing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really a problem for us because there's this huge plume of smoke spewing out these heavy metals. We were told by the EPA that everything's fine, but then some people in the district went out and got their own kits to sample the soil. And we've also been consulting with academics at local universities, and the story is much more complicated than what we're being told. And we honestly don't even know if the food is safe to eat. But that is something, I care about personally, because we don't know if we can feed my son food that's coming from the farm nearby. But also, it's good for the campaign that we can connect with those people and show up to events. We've even held events centered on it. So I agree with Greg. I actually disagree with something that Greg said. He was dismissive of knocking on doors.
No, we're still going to do that. I'm not trying to dismiss it, but that's kind of what we're going to be focusing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we just got our door hangers, and so we're going to start knocking on doors here. We've got a real name recognition problem. The guy who is an incumbent he's a Nepo baby. He's in office because his daddy was CIA director and defense secretary and all that. So he's just ridden his dad's coattails. His name is Jimmy Panetta. His dad was Leon Panetta, defense
disgusting.
secretary. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So we have to do we have to go to people's doors literally and present these door hangers, and not only to educate people about where I stand, but also to educate people about where Jimmy Panetta stands and who his donors are. I mean, we're very much emphasizing who his donors are. I wish we just got them from the printer today, but they're not at my house. I wish I could show one right now. The designer of it did a great job of showing all the logos. It almost looks like NASCAR or something. We've got this section with all his corporate donors.
Nice.
So, and I just want to say one last thing, which is when I was earlier saying that people are scared of letting go of the status quo, even though they know how deeply, deeply flawed it is, what I'm finding is that having run a second time in this district, that builds up some trust. And there are people that are willing to give me a chance that hadn't been last time around. Actually, this is going to sound crazy. It's crazy to me. I just had a person call me today. They're running for office, a local office. There's a Democrat, sits in the county party, asking me for my endorsement, which I've never been asked for.
There you go.
Wow.
But it's because I think it's because I've been in the community now 2 cycles. Like last cycle, I was talking about Gaza. I was calling for an arms embargo on Israel in 2023. And I was taking the right position. And people saw me as maybe a crackpot that first time, but then I showed up a second time.
That's right.
And I think they take me more seriously now. So people who had seen me as a crackpot and are like, oh, this is kind of cool that you just keep saying the things that I believe, and you're not bought.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take, to crack the code here. And then to you, James, how are you going to run a revolutionary outside the system campaign to, get through to voters and improve their lives?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this run. Like I mentioned, the past runs, one was across the state. One was in the 6th district, which covered, I can't count how many counties. But the 7th district, what's unique about it is it's pretty much just Indianapolis. So it's a lot more what I'd call localized. And I work in the community. I now live in the community of Indianapolis. So the Republicans have already pretty much given up on this race. I mean, you'll see a name on the ballot, but you won't see any fundraising from them. It will be just kind of a minimal. We'll get the Republicans that are in Indy, but not even compete. So I want to make it a 2-way race. I want to get my message out. I want to get it strong. I actually just announced yesterday, so I'm actually really optimistic with where I'm at. You can see my Facebook. It's already flooding with comments of we're going to vote for you. But these are relationships I have built, right? So my clients, they know me and they've seen my work and they were spreading the message about my campaigns. They've seen me volunteer in their community. And what I'm most excited about is um, when we're talking about the door knocking, whether it's door knocking or just volunteering or just showing up, it's hard to do that with a state race. It's hard to do that with even a larger congressional, larger by area, not by number, larger area. And I did do door knocking and all this. But if I'm driving down to Evansville, which is on the south side of the state, or I'm going up towards Elkhart, I can't hit a lot. So I have to pick and choose, and it was really difficult. But with Indianapolis, we can cover that by land area, and I can be in every area of Indianapolis. So I'm definitely going to utilize social media more this run because in some of the state runs, it was hard to hit all the advertising, but I can localize it more to Indy. So we're going to use a lot of the newer social media, and this is difficult to do. And I've it's a challenge because young people, if you can mobilize their vote, they can make a huge difference in the election. The problem is getting them to the actual ballot. So many people get excited, but they don't actually make that step to vote for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to energize the youth. And I think I see a lot of, even with the ICE protests, right? A lot of the schools, there's walkouts, and a lot of those are 18 in November. So if I can get my message to them and I can get them to the polls, we'll be okay in Indiana. And I think we'll make it a two-way race. And I'm even optimistic that this could be one of the first third-party wins on a federal level. So
Nice.
I'm definitely energized for it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, ICE and the elections. I saw this just the other day. I think this was done in, let's see, it was the 18th of February. So like somewhere early mid February. But we are seeing now, and this is a very polarized topic because it's always, after 2020, it was only the Republicans that said there was something wrong with the elections, and it will flip back and forth, obviously, depending on who wins. But particularly among young people, I think it was 18 to 29, and I updated on the website about that. But the real thing pushing this like concern about, I think it's only 60% of people now feel confident that the elections will go off without problems. And most of the concern is about ICE at polling places, I guess. So don't know how much that really will be a concern, but people are definitely very worried about it.
And they should be. You guys see it on the national TV in Minnesota, but even in Indianapolis, there's a lot of ways right now. IPS schools are being sued by our attorney general for not allowing ICE into one of the schools. So it's very local. It's happening, and it's something we should be concerned about because it's not just as the other side states illegal. These are also citizens that are being affected. So there's a lot to this issue that's very deep, and those who are still trying to get here the right way, but a minor thing happened in their paperwork, and now they're terrified to even go to the grocery store. So a very real issue. And I think when I talk about the youth vote, one of the things that excited me in my Senate run was I can't talk a lot about politics at work because I obviously have to be neutral at work, but on their own, one of my client's brothers came up to me, and I had actually spoken at his high school in a class. Didn't speak to him directly, but he had followed my campaign. And he goes, "I'm going to vote for the first time. I'm going to vote for you." And sure enough, he went out and voted. So it is possible to reach these individuals. And if we can use that energy that they see something wrong and they know something's wrong and they know it's because of the system of Republicans and Democrats, we can change minds and we can start to make a huge movement.
Let me just jump in on something that you just said, because I learned this only after the last election. There are people that don't know that you don't have to fill out an entire ballot in order for it to count. And people find these ballots intimidating, especially if, like, if they just learn about like your race, because this will happen, you go out and you educate people and they learn about your race. They want to vote for you. They care about your position on Palestine or ICE or Medicare for all, whatever. Um, but then they see ballot props in my state or school board and they don't know what to do. I'm actually going out of my way to tell people like this. You only have to vote for what you care about, what you know about. Leave the rest blank. It still counts. So,
there's something really important, though, that we need to change about leaving blank. And I brought this up on another one of these podcasts, and it's on the pledge. And that is knowing the judges on your ballot. I think we could show like how they ruled on certain cases in your community. And, most of that stuff is available, like public record. It takes a little bit of digging. But I think that's really important. I think we've probably all done that, where you leave it blank because you don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what you guys think about that. Like, is that something you could do with your campaign, is bring some public awareness to the other races on your ballot, specifically the judges?
So you brought up an issue with ballots, as well as there's another issue we have in Indiana as well, where it's just voting party lines. But what's interesting about voting party lines, so you can hit the R and it'll vote R down the ballot, L down the ballot, D down the ballot. What's interesting about that is that's a whole issue in itself, but it also doesn't affect the judges. And a lot of people don't realize they're not even voting for the judges. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really educated on how your ballot works. And that's one thing we do in Indiana, is we're really pushing the message to, if you are going to straight ticket party, straight ticket libertarians, but know your judges and know even the issue races. So, but that is a very tricky issue, and we have to educate people on how to read a ballot, because a lot of people will just do what they're used to doing and go in and hit the R in Indiana or D in Indianapolis. But education on ballots is absolutely essential, and you made a great point with the judges.
I mean, I think it could make a huge difference,
Well, I for me, it's voter guides that with trusted organizations. Like in my area, there's this group called Santa Cruz for Bernie that puts out a voter guide, and they've got a number of activists that like debate these props and have expertise in them. Because some of these propositions in my state, like you read the text, you say, well, that sounds good, because you don't have enough information. You have to have the people that dig into it.
We're going to be doing a voting guide. Like, if you're excited enough to show up for my campaign, to show up and vote, here's some closely aligned figures that we think align with our values and the messaging that we've done for this.
No, that's great right there. And let me butt in here, and let me, if I can, I know we're down to the last little bit here of the hour. Let me just go ahead and ask this question again. About helping people and voters and benefiting their lives a little bit and running a revolutionary campaign. One of my frustrations with running for office in 2024 is I ran an activist campaign. I was out in front on Israel, as most people in here probably were, and it was a very activist campaign. I was on the ground everywhere. I did that. I posted on social media. I was a freaking advocate. But guess what? Only 8,800 people ever went to my campaign website. I didn't, people weren't looking me up. People don't care, unfortunately. So about meeting people where they're at, a campaign galvanizes public support. And I think, as being third party people here, and a lesson that I think I've learned is, it's got to be more about issues. It's got to. And so my idea, and let me ask you guys this, if anyone wants to pick it up, how can you improve people's lives through running a campaign? I'm talking about mutual aid. I'm talking about neighborhood pickups. I'm talking about food drives. I'm talking about education. Greg, you're very educated. Education. Can we teach people practical skills along the way? People want to get involved and make their community better. Politics doesn't have to be about love bombing people. And so maybe just anyone who wants to pick that up or anything like that, is there anything that you think are ideas incorporating in your campaign to make people's lives better?
Yeah. Libertarians, again, in Indiana, I'm going to brag on my party, because we do a Super Serve Saturday where one district over the state of Indiana will do a volunteer opportunity. So I've hit a lot of those. For example, just north of Indianapolis, we filled, they're called yellow boxes, but they're for food, and there's no stipulations with them. People can just come They don't have to sign up or anything, but they're just yellow boxes sitting in the community. So we as a party filled those up. I went up to northern Indiana and literally cleaned trash off the sides of the road. And I did this because I believe in the libertarian message. And in order for my message to work, we have to see volunteerism. I mean, if we're going to say we want less government, we have to step up as individuals to volunteer. So I want people to vote for me because my message is how I live. And so I want to make sure that I'm continuing in the community, volunteering. It seems, it's hard to present that as a campaign message, but people do notice when you're showing up in the community. Absolutely. People notice when you're showing up and to homeless drives or running races to help support a local charity. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's fun ways to do it. Yeah. And I think as candidates, that's how we should do it.
Make it a focus.
Isn't that the best advertising too? I mean, you mentioned needing money for advertising, but I mean, I think spending money on those kinds of things, people notice that.
They do.
They do. And, my numbers, it's third party again, but 60,000 people noticed it in my Senate run because they came out and voted. So, nice. And that's not enough to win that election. But look, we can build on that momentum, and that's how we need to do it. Is showing up.
Absolutely.
Sean, I'll jump in, and then I'll give Greg the last word, and then I got a hard stop because I got to pick up my kid. I think that right now, when I think about what has my campaign done that was valuable outside of running a campaign and raising particular issues was, well, I took up this issue with the lithium ion fire, and we had people supporting what we were saying, and then we had some environmentalists that hated what I was saying. And what did we do about that? Well, I asked someone else to facilitate, but I brought people together to have a forum with a panel of experts, academic experts, who talked about the issue objectively. And this, the community's been arguing about this, and they've all got their own sets of facts, and they weren't coming together. And now, it's really exciting. After that forum was held, this was just a few weeks ago, there's going to be additional forums now.
That's good. Education.
And so that was really cool. I was really excited that I was able to be part of that, stitching people together. But there have been other ways that my campaign has been bringing together different groups. I think that's the main value I've brought.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I'm an activist, among other things. I've done a lot of direct action stuff, like more like high risk type things. Won't be doing that, but at least until November.
Thank you.
Or actually, who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into being, a compliant citizen for a government that's literally run by people who protect pedophiles at this point. It's about getting into our community, and we're gonna voting. Our message is voting is not going to do it, y'all. If you just rely on voting, you can kiss the Constitution goodbye. They're already trying to get rid of it because they don't want any rules or checks or balances on anything. So that involves building alternative sources of power inside of your community in united sovereignty with other communities. And people need to be taught what civil disobedience looks like. It's a muscle that needs to be trained, and you can't be politically effective if you just only use the institutions that were set up to keep powerful people in power with no accountability. So it's going to be educational, and we're going to try to lead by example.
Who's ready to stand outside some high schools and get these kids registered to vote and tell them not to, enlist in the military? Like that type of stuff. It's good for education and social media too. But that's just an issue. We interview this show. Kelly's amazing. Candidates for Assange, and then now moving on to this, we have the opportunity.
Well, two people here were for candidates for Assange. Yep.
Yep. And we have just the amazing opportunity to talk to candidates and stuff like that. So that's something I think I'm going to be harping on a lot this year is planting these seeds. Let's improve some people's lives, along the way, because the people are watching us and we have a unique platform. People are listening and paying attention.
Yeah, and I want to see more of the independent and green and libertarians working together. And this may not be something that interests your campaign right now, but I'm holding weekly election security meetings on Tuesdays at 8. And I do want to do other groups and stuff that are all related to those issues on the pledge, whether it's finding out who your judges are or, the environmental stuff in your backyard. And I think just networking, across the country with other candidates is the way to go. I mean, on the ground work. So I know you have a hard stop, Sean. I've got I played this at the beginning of another one of our broadcasts, but there's this great musician that's near me, and he wrote a song. I think I sent it to you, Sean, so you might have already seen it. But it's a Genuine American Hero. But I've got a little kind of a funny at the beginning. So, okay, here we go.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, Sean.
Yes, thank you all for coming.
Yep.
Great to meet you, Greg, and see you guys again. Okay,
Yep,
here we go.
Shitter was full. Well, we taught him how to kill on the streets of Iraq, and he'd been missing that job since he came back. And when he found a chance for a domestic tour, we thought he would re-enlist. He saw a 37-year-old mother of three, and he shot her in the face in her SUV. And by way of explanation said, "What a fucking bitch." He's a bona fide country white. He's a genuine American hero. He wears a mask and snatches us inside our homes and offices. He's a genuine American hero. Well, after me like Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib, he got used to putting people into unmarked graves, and the question why was unpatriotic slander. And now this old bald eagle's gone blind too, and he can't see his chickens coming home to roost. What's good for the goose is good for the propaganda. He's a bona fide country white. He's a genuine American hero. He keeps us safe and watches us inside our homes and offices. He's a genuine American hero. So if you see a masked and marauding man who's chiseled tall and perfectly tan, well, you can bow your head and clap your hands and you can praise the Lord we've got him. As if your neighbor squeals and your grandma gripes and your dad and sister show their stripes. You can rest easy tonight, but he won't stop until he's shot him. He's a bona fide country white.